In the hushed silence of a grand courtroom with flashing cameras just beyond its wooden doors, a pregnant woman stands trembling at the witness stand. Her tears reflect a deep heartbreak and a determination that hints at secrets soon to be unleashed. On the other side, a confident mistress sits poised, confident she holds the upper hand. As the tension mounts, a hush falls over the entire room when the wife's lawyer slides an envelope across the polished mahogany table. The DNA result inside carries the power to shake an entire millionaire dynasty to its core, and no one sees the devastating revelation coming. James Harrington was born to privilege in the affluent town of Fairborn Hills, where emerald lawns rolled behind wrought iron gates and family names carried weight like royal titles. The Harrington name had long been synonymous with influence, old money, and philanthropic endeavors. James's great-grandfather, Theodore Harrington, had established the family's fortune through innovative investments in railroads, later branching out into oil fields and real estate. Over the generations, the Harringtons had fashioned themselves into pillars of the community, renowned for their charitable foundations, prestigious gatherings, and ever-growing financial empire. James, now in his early 30s, had been groomed from birth to uphold his family's reputation. He was sent to the best boarding schools, Phillips Exeter for high school, then Yale for his bachelor's, and finally Stanford for an MBA. With each step he accumulated accolades and networked with future business titans, intellectuals, and even foreign dignitaries. By the time he returned to Fairborn Hills, he was every bit the polished gentleman his parents had raised him to be. Standing 6 feet tall with a refined aura that belied the fire in his dark brown eyes, James wielded a rare blend of charm and assertiveness. Whether at board meetings or social galas, he commanded attention without needing to raise his voice. People hung on his words, for he carried the kind of stature that made others believe in his vision, whatever it might be. It was at a fundraising event for the Harrington Foundation, which sponsored education for underprivileged youth, where James met Olivia Sinclair. Olivia had come from a modest background and knew the importance of hard work. She was a scholarship student at Boston College majoring in communications and had just secured an internship at a notable PR firm. She attended the fundraiser at the recommendation of her boss, unaware she would cross paths with Fairborn Hills' golden child. Olivia's empathy and genuine passion for helping others were refreshing in a room often filled with superficial chatter. She spoke from the heart about her struggles, how she had juggled 2 part-time jobs through college, and why she believed in the power of education to break cycles of poverty. James found himself drawn to her sincerity and warmth, qualities often absent in the polished circles he frequented. Before the night ended, James made it a point to introduce himself, and for the first time in years, he felt something akin to being smitten. Their connection was immediate, like a spark in a room full of dim lights. It didn't take long for a whirlwind romance to bloom. James courted Olivia with every bit of old-world charm he had inherited from his family. He sent flowers, thoughtfully wrote notes rather than hasty texts, and arranged candlelit dinners, not just in the city's finest restaurants, but sometimes under the stars in the Harrington Estate's expansive gardens. Olivia, taken by his sincerity, reciprocated wholeheartedly. Despite coming from completely different worlds, their shared dedication to philanthropy and empathy for others formed a common ground. Within a year, James proposed in front of the Harrington family's holiday gathering, presenting Olivia with a diamond ring that once belonged to his grandmother. Their wedding, held on the Harrington Estate's grounds, was an opulent affair. Politicians, business leaders, and celebrities mingled beneath lavish chandeliers. Yet for all the grandeur, the moment that took everyone's breath away was when the couple exchanged vows in front of a sprawling rose garden. Olivia, radiating happiness in an ivory gown, promised to love James through every high and low, while James vowed to honor and respect her with his life and fortune. Their families and guests cheered with joyful tears, believing it was a union that would last a lifetime. For the first 2 years, they seemed like the ideal power couple. The Harrington Foundation flourished under their joint leadership, expanding its educational programs and forging new partnerships with international NGOs. James steered the family's diverse business interests from luxury real estate to emerging tech startups, while Olivia managed PR campaigns and philanthropic events. Together, they were unstoppable, or so the outside world thought. Behind closed doors, the pressures of sustaining a billionaire empire, the eyes of the media, and the expectations of the Harrington dynasty began to weigh heavily on their relationship. James often worked late nights, traveling between meetings in New York, London, or Hong Kong, leaving Olivia lonely in the vast corridors of the Harrington mansion. She too had a demanding schedule, but felt the distance growing between them, an unspoken gap neither seemed to have the courage or time to bridge. Then came the day that changed Olivia's life, the day she discovered she was pregnant. When Olivia found out she was pregnant, her heart danced with both excitement and apprehension. She imagined James would be overjoyed that their child would be a unifying force, bringing them even closer in a time of drifting disconnection. She went to great lengths to plan a perfect surprise announcement, a candlelit dinner on their anniversary, champagne replaced by sparkling juice, a neatly wrapped box containing a pair of baby shoes with a small note that read, "You're going to be a father." But when James opened the box, a flicker of hesitation passed over his face. He smiled, but something in his eyes told Olivia this wasn't the reaction she had dreamed of. It wasn't disappointment exactly, but it wasn't unbridled joy either. He embraced her, telling her how wonderful this was, yet a tension in his voice suggested something else was at play. She convinced herself it was just the stress of a major business deal looming over his mind. In the days that followed, Olivia noticed James seemed more distant, as if an invisible barrier separated him from the excitement she felt. He went through the motions attending doctor's appointments, when his schedule allowed discussing nursery decor, even reading through baby name books. But his enthusiasm was subdued, overshadowed by phone calls from business associates, rushed dinner conversations, and the persistent ring of new deals waiting to be closed. One evening in the middle of her second trimester, Olivia walked into James's home office, a large study with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined with portraits of past Harrington patriarchs. She found him hunched over his desk, staring blankly at a letter in his hands. When she asked what was wrong, he quickly tucked the paper away, forcing a tight smile. "Just some business matters." "Everything's fine," he said. But Olivia sensed the undercurrent of turmoil. The next few weeks brought more strange occurrences. James started receiving private phone calls at odd hours. Olivia once heard him whispering in another room. The conversation ended abruptly the moment she stepped closer. She noticed changes in his behavior, canceling dinner plans, returning home in the early hours of the morning, smelling of expensive perfume that certainly wasn't hers. She tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was business dinners, meetings with wealthy investors where both men and women circled. She trusted him, or at least she wanted to. But an unease crept into her heart, casting shadows over the mansion's opulent walls. Meanwhile, the pregnancy made Olivia more emotional, more vigilant. She sought reassurance from James that everything was all right, but his answers grew increasingly evasive. Their once lively discussions about raising a child had become stilted, overshadowed by the sense that he was harboring secrets. Despite her worries, Olivia tried to focus on her own health and the impending arrival of their baby. She spent her days reading parenting books, attending yoga classes for expectant mothers, and trying to maintain her role in the Harrington Foundation. In public, she still had to present herself as the elegant, unflappable wife of the city's favorite millionaire son. Yet away from the cameras, she spent sleepless nights wondering if she was merely playing a part in a story that was starting to unravel. Her suspicions reached a breaking point when she discovered a platinum bracelet in the glove compartment of James's car. Engraved on its interior were the initials BM, clearly not her own. The design was feminine, and from the style of the piece it was obviously a recent purchase from an upscale jeweler in Paris. Olivia felt her stomach churn. The final puzzle pieces were beginning to align in a dark, unmistakable pattern. Unable to bear the weight of her suspicions any longer, Olivia confronted James one night. She showed him the bracelet, her hand shaking, tears brimming. "Who does this belong to, James?" she asked. James's face went pale, and for a moment he appeared almost relieved that she had asked. He stuttered, fumbling over words. It was for a business associate who'd done them a great favor. He explained half-heartedly, offering an unconvincing smile that did little to soothe Olivia's torment. Doubt festered, overshadowing the joy of her pregnancy. The next day, she did a quick online check of major society columns and paparazzi snapshots. One name kept appearing alongside rumors of James Harrington Beatrice Marshall, an emerging fashion designer with a penchant for drama and sensational headlines. Rumors of their alleged closeness circulated on social media, but were swiftly dismissed by official statements from James's PR team. Yet the photos told a different story. Images of them entering a private members-only club in New York, exiting a luxury hotel in Milan, always with James's hand resting on the small of her back in an all-too-familiar gesture. Olivia's hands trembled at the sight of the pictures. She felt a cold wave of betrayal washing over her heart pounding in fury and despair. She tried calling James to confront him with the evidence, but her calls went unanswered. In that moment, she realized that the man she married was no longer the person she thought she knew. Their carefully cultivated image of marital bliss was cracking the shattered shards, threatening to cut deep. Pregnant, alone, and uncertain of her future, Olivia decided it was time to confide in someone. She contacted an old friend from college, Maya Roberts, who now worked at a local law firm. Though not specialized in family law, Maya could at least provide a listening ear and connect Olivia to the right resources if needed. Olivia confessed everything: the tension, the bracelet, the suspicious calls, the incriminating photos. Maya, outraged by James's duplicity, offered her unwavering support. That night, as the mansion's lights dimmed and the silent corridors gave way to the echoes of distant footsteps, Olivia resolved to uncover the truth, no matter how painful. She touched her growing belly and whispered to her unborn child, "Whatever happens, I'll protect you." But she had no inkling of the storm gathering just beyond the horizon. A storm that would shake the Harrington empire to its core and thrust Olivia into the most harrowing battle of her life. Beatrice Marshall wasn't just another socialite chasing clout. She was a ruthless opportunist who had climbed her way into the fashion industry through cunning alliances and meticulously planned publicity stunts. Her designs were bold and avant-garde, often featured in gossip columns more than fashion editorials. She reveled in controversy, believing that any publicity was good publicity. Standing 5'9" with striking blonde hair and an icy smile that could disarm the most formidable critics, Beatrice made sure her name stayed on everyone's lips. When James Harrington began appearing in her orbit, tongues started wagging. Paparazzi snapped photos of them at private clubs, at her runway shows, at upscale restaurants in Milan during Fashion Week. For months, rumors circulated that Beatrice was the other woman, but James's PR team quashed these stories as easily as swatting a fly, paying them off, or threatening legal action. In private, however, Beatrice had no qualms about the relationship. She teased James with glamorous parties and introduced him to a world far removed from philanthropic dinners and staid black-tie galas. With her, James could indulge the rebellious streak he had always suppressed. Each whirlwind liaison promised new excitements, a rush of adrenaline he couldn't find in the structured environment of the Harrington family empire. Beatrice soon became addicted to the power she had over James. She liked controlling her own narrative, but controlling him, a scion of one of Fairborn Hill's richest families, was an even sweeter prospect. The prize was more than James's heart. It was his surname, his fortune, and the envy of an entire social sphere. But James was torn between the life he had built with Olivia, especially now that she was pregnant, and the guilty freedom he experienced in Beatrice's presence. He knew there was a line he shouldn't cross yet. He stumbled toward it, fueled by ego and a sense of escaping the oppressive weight of Harrington expectations. Beatrice, sensing this vulnerability, pushed him to make promises he wasn't ready to fulfill. She wanted more than secret rendezvous. She wanted the spotlight. And James, in a moment of weakness, made vows he would come to regret. When rumors of Olivia's pregnancy spread publicly, Beatrice's resentment grew. She felt threatened, secondary overshadowed by the legitimate wife carrying James's heir. So she hatched a plan, one that would bring her front and center into James's life. It started with carefully leaked photographs, ensuring that tabloids caught wind of unofficial sightings. Then she whispered into James's ear about launching a new fashion line. The launch party would be in Hong Kong, a city James frequently visited for business. She insisted he attend, promising a discreet arrival and departure to avoid fueling the rumor mill. In truth, she organized for certain paparazzi to be there waiting to capture the hidden glimpses that would ignite scandal. James, oblivious to Beatrice's manipulations, agreed to go. That night, as he stepped onto the rooftop of the glitzy Hong Kong venue, cameras flashed in every corner, capturing the moment he held Beatrice's waist in a way that wasn't just friendly. The next morning, the tabloids were ablaze with salacious headlines insinuating an affair more brazen than ever before. Olivia woke up miles away in Fairborn Hills to find her husband splashed across websites and magazines, grinning alongside the mistress in question. Humiliated, devastated, and sick with heartbreak, Olivia confronted James in a tearful rage the moment he returned home. He denied nothing this time but tried to explain. He was exhausted pushing the blame onto the high-pressure environment that had corroded their marriage. It was a mistake, he said, a moment of weakness. But Olivia saw the empty look in his eyes, the refusal to cut off contact with Beatrice. She knew this went deeper than a simple indiscretion. Beatrice, emboldened by her successful publicity stunt, escalated her demands. She wanted to be photographed on James's arm at events to be recognized openly. In a chilling phone call, she threatened to go public with more photos, messages, and videos if James didn't comply. She even gloated that she was planning to launch a collaboration with a top-tier real estate developer, someone who might be a competitor or partner for the Harrington empire. The message was clear. She could stir up trouble for James in his professional world if he didn't play along. Increasingly cornered, James found himself losing control of the narrative. For the first time in his life, he couldn't rely solely on his family's wealth or influence to sweep a crisis under the rug. Beatrice held the cards, and his marriage was unraveling by the day. Each time he tried to break things off, she threatened more exposure, more chaos. If Olivia found out the full extent of their affair, and that James had once promised he would leave everything for Beatrice, he feared she would divorce him and take a significant share of the Harrington estate. But the greatest shock was yet to come. In a private text message, Beatrice dropped a bombshell. She claimed to be pregnant as well. James's mind reeled. If true, it would throw the entire Harrington legacy into turmoil. 2 pregnant women claiming the Harrington heir. The tabloids would feast on this scandal, potentially toppling the family's carefully maintained image. Desperate, James decided to confide in an old confidant, William Friedman, a prominent attorney who had been the Harrington family's legal fixer for decades. William was known to be discreet and ruthless, capable of handling the darkest secrets with a stoic detachment. However, James underestimated the chain reaction this decision would set off. The day James visited Friedman's office, he pleaded for a solution to ensure that Beatrice's claims would never see the light of day, and that Olivia remained in the dark about the affair's full extent. Friedman, cool and calculating, promised to investigate. His first step was to discreetly contact a private investigator to verify Beatrice's pregnancy. If it was false, they could easily discredit her. If it was true, they would propose a settlement to quietly handle the matter. What no one anticipated was that Friedman's involvement would leak. Gossip traveled fast in Fairborn Hills, and soon enough rumors swirled that James was not only seeing another woman but also seeking to cover up a potential second pregnancy. Olivia, in her heartbreak, had reached out to her own legal ally, Maya Roberts, who then referred her to a high-profile family lawyer, Mia Donovan. Mia's reputation for aggressively defending the rights of scorned spouses was legendary. Before James could finalize any hush deal, he found himself slapped with legal papers requesting a formal separation. The scandal crescendoed, culminating in a dramatic confrontation in which Beatrice, accompanied by her own lawyer, threatened to sue for emotional distress and child support if James didn't publicly acknowledge her unborn child. Olivia, devastated and furious, demanded full transparency and prepared her own legal countersuit to protect her and her baby's future. The stage was set for a public court hearing that would embroil the Harrington family in unprecedented scandal. Yet behind the swirl of tabloid gossip and high-powered attorneys, an even larger secret brewed. DNA results would soon be demanded to verify paternity, and the truth, far more tangled than any rumor, was about to erupt, forever changing the lives of everyone involved. The day Olivia first walked into Mia Donovan's spacious office was the moment she decided to fight back. Maya was well known for her fierce dedication to her clients, especially women betrayed by powerful men. Her office, perched high in a gleaming skyscraper overlooking the city, was both imposing and comforting to Olivia. Modern art pieces lined the walls, and the floor-to-ceiling windows allowed a panoramic view of Fairborn Hills. Mia greeted Olivia with a handshake that was firm yet reassuring. As Olivia recounted her story, tears ran down her cheeks. She shared details of how James's affair had become public knowledge, how hurt and humiliated she felt, and her fear of bringing a child into such turmoil. Mia listened intently, scribbling notes in a leather-bound notepad. When Olivia mentioned Beatrice's alleged pregnancy, Mia's eyes narrowed. "We need proof," she said. "We can't act on rumors alone. We also need a thorough financial picture. If we proceed with a separation or divorce, we must ensure you and your baby are secure." Meanwhile, James scrambled to contain the fallout. His personal attorney, William Friedman, advised him to present a calm, empathetic public face. Express regret. Maintain your image as a caring family man. Friedman counseled, "If we come off as callous, public sympathy will shift entirely toward Olivia and her unborn child. And if Beatrice truly is pregnant, we need to confirm paternity before we make any official statements." Beatrice, too, was preparing. She hired a well-known celebrity lawyer, Trevor Blaine, who specialized in extracting lucrative settlements from high-profile figures. Trevor wasted no time in orchestrating a media narrative portraying Beatrice as a misunderstood genius driven into the arms of James Harrington by shared artistic visions and an unquenchable spark of love. Tabloid headlines soared, painting her alternately as the cunning mistress or the victim of a wealthy man's manipulation. Public opinion was deeply divided. Amid the media storm, Olivia's health began to suffer. Stress eroded her sleep, and she started experiencing complications with her pregnancy: migraines, dizziness, and heightened blood pressure. Frequent checkups with her obstetrician, Dr. Felicia Warren, became critical. Dr. Warren warned her that excessive stress could harm both her and the baby, urging her to find emotional support and maintain a stable environment. Yet how could Olivia find stability when every news channel seemed to flash her husband's betrayal? Paparazzi camped outside the gates of the Harrington mansion, and reporters hurled invasive questions whenever she stepped out. The once quiet estate now felt like a public arena with drones buzzing overhead trying to capture private moments. The Harrington family, mortified by the scandal, tried to smooth things over. James's mother, Victoria Harrington, attempted to comfort Olivia, but her words felt hollow. Olivia couldn't help but think that Victoria's true concern was about preserving the family reputation rather than genuinely caring for her well-being. In a desperate attempt to keep the matter private, Friedman and Trevor Blaine agreed to schedule a mediation session. The objective was simple: settle out of court. Friedman entered the negotiations with cold logic, armed with a non-disclosure agreement that he wanted Beatrice to sign in exchange for a substantial sum. They would maintain that the affair was over, that James would continue to support Beatrice during her alleged pregnancy, if proven real, and that no further mention of the relationship would be made to the press. In Friedman's mind, this was a simple, clean transaction. But Beatrice had different ideas. She didn't want to fade into the background as a kept woman. She relished the attention and believed she could leverage the situation for an even bigger payout. She refused to sign the NDA unless James publicly acknowledged her child after a paternity test. Friedman balked at the condition. A formal acknowledgement would be a dagger in the heart of the Harrington brand, signifying an undeniable fracturing of the family. The mediation collapsed, each side seething with resentment. Public interest soared, intensifying the media circus. Talk shows debated the moral implications of James's actions, and social media feeds flooded with hashtags like #HarringtonScandal. Influencers dissected every new rumor, analyzing each photograph for hidden meanings. The public was enthralled by the saga of the pregnant wife versus the cunning mistress, and everyone eagerly awaited the next twist. Finally, a court hearing loomed on the horizon. Olivia, through Mia Donovan, filed a petition for legal separation, citing infidelity and emotional distress. She also filed a protective order against Beatrice, given that the mistress had begun taunting her on social media, posting cryptic messages alluding to the real heir of James Harrington. Trevor Blaine responded with a countersuit on Beatrice's behalf, claiming James had promised her financial and emotional support, thus leaving her in limbo and psychologically scarred. Under mounting pressure, James agreed to a paternity test for both unborn children at Friedman's recommendation. It was the only way to quell speculation and possibly salvage his reputation. Olivia, though deeply hurt, found herself ironically hoping that Beatrice's pregnancy was a lie. But her fear was tangible. What if James had fathered 2 children at the same time? Her nights were haunted by nightmares of raising a child mired in an ugly custody war that would never end. Days turned into weeks as the paternity testing process moved forward in secrecy. Only the lawyers and the designated doctors knew when and how the samples were taken. Each party awaited the results with bated breath, aware that a single sheet of paper would determine the next move in this convoluted game. Then, 2 weeks before the scheduled court hearing, Friedman received a confidential envelope marked DNA results private. He summoned James to his office immediately. When James arrived, Friedman locked the door. The atmosphere was charged with tension as Friedman carefully slid the sealed envelope across the desk. James hesitated, sweat beading on his forehead. "Open it," Friedman said curtly. James tore at the seal, his hands shaking. He pulled out the documents, eyes racing across the lines of sterile scientific data. Friedman watched his steely gaze, never leaving James's face. When James finally spoke, his voice cracked. "This changes everything," he whispered. But Friedman's phone buzzed before he could respond. It was Mia Donovan calling on behalf of Olivia, requesting an urgent meeting regarding significant evidence they had obtained. Friedman's heart pounded. He glanced again at James, who looked as if he'd seen a ghost. The carefully laid plans, the hush money, the spin tactics, none of them would matter if the truth was as shocking as James's expression implied. What exactly did the test reveal? And what new evidence did Olivia's team have? The labyrinth was tightening its corridors, merging toward a single explosive confrontation. In just a matter of days, the world would find out in a courtroom teeming with reporters, flashing cameras, and the raw, unvarnished emotions of 3 lives colliding under the harsh spotlight of scandal. The days before the court hearing felt like the hush before a storm. The Harrington mansion, once a symbol of grandeur and stability, now brimmed with tension. Staff moved quietly, trying to avoid overhearing heated conversations in passing corridors. Reporters still camped at the gates, determined to be the first to break any new development in the scandal that gripped the entire city. Olivia found fleeting solace in her unborn child's gentle kicks. Whenever she felt overwhelmed, she paused to place a hand on her belly, reminding herself that her priority was to protect the life growing within her. Yet her anxiety was mounting. She heard whispers that Friedman possessed the paternity results. James had said nothing directly, but she caught glimpses of his ashen face as he paced the hallways. Something monumental had shifted, and it scared her more than any rumor. With Mia Donovan's guidance, Olivia prepared her case meticulously. Mia assembled documents detailing James's financial assets, property holdings, and estate valuations, evidence necessary to ensure Olivia received adequate support. They also cataloged a series of messages, photographs, and testimonies from staff members who had witnessed suspicious behavior between James and Beatrice. Some staff members initially loyal to the Harrington family found themselves torn between preserving the Harrington name and empathizing with Olivia's plight. Several had discreetly come forward to share what they knew: the hush-hush deliveries of gifts, Beatrice's visits at odd hours, and the growing tension in James's demeanor. Beatrice, for her part, orchestrated a media blitz. She granted a sensational interview to a tabloid carefully curated by Trevor Blaine to paint her as the naive other woman who had genuinely believed James's promises of a future together. She emphasized her own pregnancy, describing how anxious she felt without James's emotional and financial support. Her words tugged at the public's sympathy, even though critics pointed out her role in breaking up a marriage. Yet the public's fascination only grew. Networks scheduled prime-time segments dedicated to dissecting the Harrington scandal, bringing in psychologists, legal experts, and gossip columnists, all offering their takes on who was at fault, who was lying, and who deserved compassion. Meanwhile, Friedman devised a last-ditch strategy to contain the damage. He considered leaking a partial version of the truth, suggesting that James had been deceived by Beatrice and that her pregnancy might be questionable. However, the DNA test results in Friedman's possession complicated any attempt at spinning the narrative. He also had no control over the significant evidence Mia Donovan claimed to have. Torn between loyalty to the Harrington family and the complexities of the case, Friedman debated whether to advise James to settle quickly or risk the unpredictable fury of a full court hearing. The day before the hearing, a private conversation took place in James's study. Late at night, after a tense dinner, James asked Olivia to meet him there. She arrived to find him standing by the large bay window gazing out at the moonlit gardens. His usual confidence was replaced by a haunted expression. For a moment, neither spoke. Eventually, James broke the silence. "I never wanted this to happen," he said, his voice trembling. "I was stupid, reckless. And now I might lose you, our baby, everything." Olivia fought back tears. She wanted to ask about the DNA tests, about why he couldn't just admit the truth. But she also wanted answers to a deeper question. Did he ever truly love her? "If you never wanted this," she replied, "why did you chase it? Why did you lie to me over and over?" James struggled to find the words. He offered a version of contrition, half apology, half self-pity. He insisted Beatrice had manipulated him, leveraging his desire for excitement outside the rigid Harrington lifestyle. He admitted to wanting an escape, a break from the pedestal he was placed on since birth. It was a tangled knot of guilt, regret, and desperation, a confession that might have meant something if it hadn't come so late. Before Olivia left, she turned to face him, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Do you have any idea," she said softly, "how it feels to go to bed every night carrying your child, not knowing if you'd rather be with her?" James didn't answer. She left him standing there in the shadows, consumed by a shame that had arrived far too late. The morning of the court hearing dawned with a muted sunrise. The corridors of the Fairborn Hills courthouse were already packed with reporters, photographers, and onlookers who had come to witness the showdown. Police officers were stationed at every entrance, keeping the throng at bay. Olivia arrived with Mia Donovan by her side, head held high despite the swirling cameras and shouted questions from the press. She wore a simple black maternity dress, her face devoid of the usual makeup. Instead, her natural beauty and the raw emotion in her eyes captured the attention of everyone watching. James followed, accompanied by William Friedman. He wore a tailored navy suit, but the confident stride that once defined him was replaced by anxious hesitation. The reporters clamored for a statement, but Friedman swiftly guided him through the crowd, refusing any comment. Beatrice made her entrance last, swathed in an eye-catching designer ensemble that hugged her figure, her hand conspicuously resting on her slightly rounded belly. The paparazzi flashes intensified. Trevor Blaine, dapper in a pinstripe suit, escorted her every bit the showman. Inside the courtroom, tension thickened. The judge, an imposing figure named Judge Harriet Gibbons, took her seat behind a lofty bench. She had presided over many high-profile cases, but the media frenzy surrounding this hearing was unprecedented. She wasted no time calling the court to order and addressing the gathered parties: Olivia Harrington, pregnant wife and plaintiff; James Harrington, defendant; and Beatrice Marshall, the co-defendant in the countersuit. Mia Donovan began the proceedings, laying out Olivia's claims of infidelity, emotional distress, and the need for financial protection during pregnancy. She displayed a series of documents, including evidence of James's affair with Beatrice, texts, emails, hotel invoices. As each piece of proof was read aloud, Olivia kept her gaze on the floor, her stomach twisting with every humiliating detail laid bare. Trevor Blaine fired back, painting Beatrice as a woman scorned by broken promises. He argued that James had misled her into believing he would leave Olivia, and that when pregnancy entered the picture, he tried to silence Beatrice with hush money. Beatrice's eyes shone with tears on cue, and she dabbed them theatrically with a handkerchief. To the onlookers, it was a polished performance. Some believed her, others scoffed. The courtroom stirred when Friedman rose to speak. He addressed the DNA tests, acknowledging that paternity was central to the matter. He then presented the official lab results. The hush that fell over the room was palpable. Friedman's voice was steady, but James's face was ashen as Friedman announced 1. For Olivia Harrington's child. There was a 99.9% probability that James was the biological father. 2. For Beatrice Marshall's child. The results showed a 0% probability that James was the biological father. Gasps and murmurs filled the air. Beatrice's face went sheet white. Trevor Blaine looked flabbergasted, momentarily losing his composure. A hush descended as Friedman continued. My client has thus been wrongly implicated. While he admits to an affair, the pregnancy claimed by Ms. Marshall is not biologically his responsibility. Immediately, Beatrice leaped to her feet, protesting. This is a lie, she screamed, tears rolling down her cheeks. He must have bribed the doctors. There's no way. But Friedman calmly presented documents from an independent lab, stamped and verified, leaving little room for doubt. Judge Gibbons banged her gavel for order. Once the commotion settled, Trevor Blaine was forced to concede that they would need time to verify the results. For Olivia, the revelation was a twist she never saw coming. Her eyes flickered to James. If Beatrice's child wasn't his, then why had he been so fearful? She realized that James didn't know until recently that the entire fiasco had been fueled by a lie Beatrice used to keep him under her control. But Mia Donovan wasn't done. She stood, her expression resolute. Your Honor, she said, my client has discovered critical information regarding Ms. Marshall's motivations. We have proof that Ms. Marshall engaged in a calculated plan to defraud Mr. Harrington. She produced receipts from a private medical clinic in another state proving Beatrice had known for weeks that James was not the father. The father was someone else entirely, a wealthy real estate developer named Conrad Grisham, who ironically had business dealings with James's family. The courtroom erupted again. Beatrice's composure shattered. Her lawyers exchanged hurried whispers. The press crammed into every available seat, scribbled frantically, preparing sensational headlines. In a last-ditch effort, Beatrice's lawyer insisted the tests were inconclusive. He also tried to shift the focus to James's affair, but the judge demanded order. Judge Gibbons took note of the new evidence, then allowed Friedman to present James's statement. James stood, his voice subdued. He admitted to the affair, expressed remorse, and asked the court to focus on providing for Olivia's emotional and financial stability during her pregnancy. I made terrible mistakes, he said, glancing at Olivia, but my loyalty is to my wife and our unborn child. I'm ready to accept any legal consequence to ensure they are protected. His admission was too little too late for Olivia's shattered heart, but it carried weight in a legal sense. Friedman then unveiled a settlement proposal. James offered substantial alimony and child support should Olivia proceed with the divorce, as well as immediate financial provision and full medical coverage for her pregnancy. He also proposed a permanent restraining order against Beatrice, blocking her from releasing any more damaging claims or falsehoods. The judge requested a recess to deliberate. Outside the courtroom, tension soared. Reporters bombarded the attorney's cameras, flashed at rapid intervals, and online news sites updated headlines by the minute. Some labeled Beatrice as a conniving villain. Others argued she was cornered by a powerful family. The only certainty was that the revelations had ignited a firestorm even bigger than the initial affair. When court reconvened, Judge Gibbons spoke in a clear, authoritative voice. She acknowledged the verified DNA results and the evidence pointing to Beatrice's fraud. She also admonished James for his extramarital affair and the turmoil it brought upon Olivia. Turning to Olivia, the judge said, Mrs. Harrington, you have the right to seek compensation, child support, and any other provisions under the law. The court will uphold these rights vigorously. Finally, after consulting all parties, the judge issued temporary orders. 1. Beatrice was required to cease all public commentary and social media posts related to the Harrington family. 2. James was obliged to continue providing financial support to Olivia until the final decision on divorce or reconciliation was made. 3. A date was set to finalize the terms, giving Olivia time to decide whether to proceed with divorce or attempt reconciliation. The gavel struck and the hearing ended. The crowd erupted in a cacophony of questions, cameras, and speculation. Outside, a dazed Beatrice was escorted by her lawyer, refusing to speak to the press. James Friedman and Olivia walked out to a barrage of microphones. Olivia said nothing. She simply held her head high, ignoring the flashbulbs as she made her way to a waiting car. But the final blow of the day belonged to Olivia's legal team. As she slipped into the car, Mia Donovan leaned into a reporter's microphone and succinctly stated, "The DNA results have silenced the mistress, but the emotional damage to my client remains. We will seek justice every step of the way." With that, the spectacle outside the courthouse reached its crescendo. The world had witnessed the downfall of Beatrice's charade. Yet for Olivia and James, another storm loomed: the decision to stay, or to leave, to forgive, or to move forward alone. The next steps in their saga would unfold behind closed doors. But for now, one truth reigned supreme. The mistress had been silenced, and the pregnant wife, though her tears still fresh, emerged from the courtroom with her dignity intact. Back at the Harrington mansion, silence reigned for days. Olivia, drained by the emotional upheaval, confined herself to her suite, focusing on her baby's well-being. James respected her space, leaving her undisturbed while grappling with his own guilt. Each corner of the estate seemed haunted by the echoes of revelations that had exploded in that courtroom. The press had a field day with the story. Late-night talk show hosts made comedic monologues at the expense of James and Beatrice, while morning shows hosted experts discussing the scandal's social and psychological dimensions. Online forums buzzed with debates about privilege, betrayal, and the power of wealth to manipulate outcomes. Hashtags like #HarringtonHeir and #FauxMistress trended globally. Beatrice, on the other hand, faced a tidal wave of backlash. Sponsors for her budding fashion lines quietly withdrew their support. Conrad Grisham, the real father of her child, refused to comment publicly, focusing instead on severing any public ties to the scandal. Rumors spread that Beatrice had left the city seeking solace or a strategy in a secluded property on the coast. Her social media accounts went dark, replaced by cryptic statements from Trevor Blaine, asserting they would appeal any legal decisions and claiming that the DNA results were potentially flawed. Within the Harrington household, the staff walked on eggshells, unsure whether they would soon be serving a mistress-turned-fiancée, or whether Olivia would remain the lady of the house. Victoria Harrington, James's mother, urged Olivia to consider reconciling for the sake of the family legacy. She even invoked the name of James's great-grandmother, who had once weathered a public scandal of her own. Olivia listened politely, but her heart was far from swayed. Mia Donovan became Olivia's closest confidant during this time. She visited regularly, ensuring Olivia's emotional and legal well-being. Mia presented divorce papers that would protect Olivia's interests, awarding her substantial alimony and a considerable share of Harrington estate revenue provisions that would secure her future and her child's. Olivia's mind swam with conflicting emotions: heartbreak over James's betrayal, lingering love for the man she once believed him to be, and a maternal drive to provide a stable life for her child. After a week of near silence, James requested a meeting in the mansion's private garden. Under a canopy of century-old oak trees, he pleaded for Olivia's forgiveness. He apologized for the suffering he caused for letting the affair spiral into a monstrous spectacle. He claimed he was prepared to do whatever it took to heal their marriage, to attend counseling, to spend time away from business obligations and focus on family. His tone was subdued, the arrogance and charm replaced by genuine remorse, or so it appeared. Olivia listened intently, tears glistening in her eyes. She recalled the day they first met, the promises they made on their wedding day, and how easily those vows crumbled in the face of temptation. She felt a swell of conflicting emotions: sorrow, anger, pity, and perhaps a trace of the love she once knew. "James," she said softly, "I need time. I can't just—" She paused, unable to find the right words. "I can't just pretend everything's fine." "I understand," he replied. "I'll give you space. But please believe me, I'm done with deception. I know I can never erase what happened, but I can try to be better for you and our child." Olivia walked away without making any promises. There was no quick fix for a broken heart. Over the following weeks, Olivia dedicated herself to her pregnancy and her mental health. She saw Dr. Warren regularly, who noted improvements in Olivia's stress levels now that the immediate scandal was behind her. Each night, Olivia read parenting books, practicing mindfulness exercises to help her sleep. She journaled her thoughts, her anger, her lingering sadness, and her cautious hope that life might yet bring her peace. James, for his part, tried to become the husband he had never been. He cut back on business trips, attended therapy sessions, and even joined Olivia for a few counseling appointments. They talked about the root causes of his betrayal, the suffocating pressure of being a Harrington heir, his fear of never living up to the family name, and how he had sought a sense of freedom in all the wrong places. Olivia shared her feelings of isolation and betrayal, urging him to understand the magnitude of his actions. Slowly, cracks in their barrier began to mend, though not vanish. Trust was not something Olivia could offer freely again. It would have to be earned day by day. Yet for the first time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of cautious optimism. She suspected that her reasons for giving James another chance, if she chose to, might center more on providing a stable environment for her baby than on salvaging a broken romance. Her legal counsel, Mia, remained vigilant. Even as Olivia wavered between reconciliation and independence, Mia continued working on the divorce papers and financial agreements. "Whether you stay married or not," Mia said, "I need to make sure you are fully protected. This is your insurance if he ever reverts to his old ways." One crisp morning, Olivia made a decision. She called James into the drawing room where morning light filtered through lace curtains, giving the space a soft glow. With a quiet resolve, she stated that she was willing to try counseling to see if their marriage could be repaired, but only under the strict condition that James sign the post-nuptial agreement Mia had drafted. The agreement ensured that if he was ever unfaithful again, or if the marriage became untenable, Olivia would receive a sizable portion of Harrington assets, no questions asked. James hesitated only for a moment before signing. Tears welled in his eyes as he handed her the document. "I understand," he said. "I'll do anything to make this right." For the next 2 months they lived in a tentative harmony. James doted on Olivia, helping decorate the nursery, reading up on childcare, and learning how to massage her feet whenever her ankles swelled. The staff, once on edge, began to relax. The mansion felt for a fleeting moment like a home preparing to welcome new life rather than a stage for scandal. Still, specters of the past lingered. Paparazzi occasionally staked out the property, hoping to catch a glimpse of any friction or sign of Beatrice's return. Rumors circulated that Beatrice had given birth prematurely in a private facility fathered by Conrad Grisham. No pictures emerged, and Trevor Blaine remained uncharacteristically tight-lipped. Some speculated that Conrad had paid Beatrice handsomely to stay silent and avoid further drama. Despite it all, Olivia and James pressed on. The final month of her pregnancy arrived and her health stabilized. Dr. Warren scheduled a C-section due to complications that had arisen earlier. On a chilly winter morning, James drove Olivia to the hospital. Holding hands, they entered the maternity ward, both nervous and hopeful. After hours of anxious waiting and medical preparations, they heard the first cry of their baby, a son. Tearful and overwhelmed, Olivia held him in her arms. James stood beside her, tears streaming down his face as he whispered apologies and vows of dedication to them both. In that moment, their world shrank to the hospital bed where mother, father, and child formed a fragile circle of love, a new beginning, or at least the closest they could come to one after so many betrayals. Bringing the baby home to the Harrington estate was surreal. For a while, the house was filled with the sounds of midnight feedings, soft lullabies, and gentle coos. Olivia immersed herself in motherhood, discovering a fierce, protective instinct she never knew she possessed. James, too, seemed determined to be a devoted father, waking up for late-night diaper changes and encouraging Olivia to rest. With each passing day, the memory of the courtroom drama began to fade, replaced by the immediate demands of caring for a newborn. The public had mostly moved on to new scandals, leaving the Harrington fiasco as a cautionary tale in the annals of Fairborn Hills gossip. Yet behind the scenes, lawyers finalized the legal terms of separation versus reconciliation. In the end, Olivia faced a crucial decision. Could she forgive James fully? Could she trust him again with her heart, not just co-parent with him out of necessity? She struggled with these questions, remembering the heartbreak, the public humiliation, and the tears she shed in that courtroom. On a quiet afternoon while the baby napped, Olivia found James in the nursery. He was gazing down at their son in awe, whispering soft lullabies he'd learned from his mother. A pang of emotion tugged at her chest. She considered the weight of a single choice to break free and start anew, or to rebuild a partnership that had once seemed irreparably damaged. After the baby stirred, James stepped away to let Olivia nurse. On his way out, he paused at the door. "No matter what you decide," he said softly, "I'm here for our son, and for you if you'll have me." Later that night, Olivia retreated to her old diaries, flipping through pages, chronicling her university days, their wedding, and the early months of her marriage. She recalled the overwhelming love she felt when they exchanged vows and how that love had been shattered. But she also saw glimmers of happiness in the recent days, James rocking their baby to sleep, whispering heartfelt apologies, signing the postnup without hesitation. In a tearful conversation, Olivia told James that she wanted to stay and continue working on their marriage, but that it would be a long road. She needed honesty, open communication, and consistent commitment. She refused to be naive, but she also believed that people could learn from their mistakes if they truly wanted to change. James promised he would prove himself day after day for as long as it took. With that decision, they moved forward. Counseling became a regular part of their lives. They discussed the burdens of wealth, the illusions of power, and the importance of mutual respect. There were setbacks, moments when old doubts resurfaced, or when James struggled with the pressure of business. But each time they faced those issues head-on, rather than allowing them to fester. Months rolled into a year. Their baby grew into a bright-eyed toddler toddling around the mansion's vast hallways. The media occasionally revisited the Harrington scandal in retrospective articles. But by then the story felt remote, like a distant nightmare from which Olivia had finally awakened. She continued her philanthropic work, now focusing on children's health and welfare, using her experience to advocate for maternal mental health programs. James reorganized parts of the Harrington empire, prioritizing family time and philanthropic initiatives over relentless profit-chasing. He became more active in the community, volunteering at local charities alongside Olivia. Some scoffed, calling it an elaborate PR strategy, but others saw genuine humility in his new approach. Their marriage was not the picture-perfect fairy tale it once appeared to be. They had scars, trust issues that needed constant attention, and memories that would never fully vanish. Yet they also had a newfound understanding of each other, forged by the painful fire of betrayal and the unwavering need to protect their child. Beatrice's name rarely surfaced. Rumor had it that she moved abroad, rumored to live off Conrad Grisham's fortune, but the details remained murky. From time to time, tabloids teased the idea of a tell-all from Beatrice, but nothing ever materialized. Trevor Blaine released a statement once claiming his client was focusing on motherhood, but it went largely ignored. On a warm evening, exactly 2 years after the tumultuous court hearing, James and Olivia stood on the mansion's balcony, watching their son chase fireflies across the lawn. The boy's laughter floated up to them, carrying the sweet promise of innocence. Olivia felt James's arms circle her waist. She stiffened momentarily, then relaxed, letting herself lean against him. The horizon was awash in oranges and pinks, a sunset reminiscent of the first time they realized they loved each other. No words were spoken. None were needed. They had survived a crisis that could have easily torn them apart, perhaps should have. Yet they remained a family that was both fractured and strangely stronger. The future stretched before them, uncertain but not devoid of hope. In the end, the DNA results that silenced the mistress did more than just clear James of paternal responsibility for Beatrice's child. They forced all parties to confront the lies, manipulations, and personal failings that had led them to that tumultuous courtroom. Olivia, whose tears once stained the witness stand, emerged with greater resilience and a fierce commitment to her child's future. James, once the epitome of a privileged heir, learned that money and power offered no shelter from the consequences of betrayal. Their journey remained a delicate balancing act of trust and forgiveness, a lesson that sometimes even broken pieces can be fit together to form something new. Thank you for joining us on this intense journey through betrayal, heartbreak, and unexpected redemption. Olivia's tears in the courtroom were real, her determination fierce, and in the end, a simple DNA test brought down the walls of deceit and forced everyone to face the truth. While it wasn't a fairy tale resolution, it showed us how love, resilience, and accountability can guide us through the darkest storms. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think twice about trust in relationships, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Please like this video, share it with friends who appreciate a tale of love and survival against the odds, and subscribe to our channel for more dramatic real-life stories that keep you on the edge of your seat. Your support helps us continue bringing powerful narratives to life. Thank you, and stay tuned for the next story.